Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Hut's first fantasy football podcast of the season. I'm the league commissioner, David Kiarsis. I'm joined here by league member Alex Mason. We're here to talk about draft day, getting ready for the upcoming season. How are we feeling about it, Alex?
Feeling all nervous, excited. Lots of anticipation. Another year coming up. We'll see what's going to happen. It's every year it's unpredictable, and with what we think happens on draft day, we make these predictions, and we're always wrong. So let's get after it and be wrong again.
And, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about it, making predictions. That's kind of what we're here to do today. First, we're going to talk a little bit about the off season. There was obviously some very big trades that went down that are not only going to affect draft day, but the upcoming season. A lot of teams maneuvering to try to get themselves some guys and some picks, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So, Mason, I guess, why don't you start? Which trade stood out to you the most?
Well, I'll try to stay away from any trades I made because it's I'm obviously going to have a biased opinion, but this trade stuck out to me. We had one with RG three-way. Arian Foster, he drafted him, 3 years ago, I think? First year of keepers, and he turned out to be a great keeper for 2 years. But now, with the history of running backs, I question if he's worth trading for, which is something that D. Butters did, which is actually you. Trading two players. Doug Martin, who I think is kind of comparable to Arian Foster, but Des Bryant is, I think, the big piece in this trade. But, if you give the board a look real quick, Des Bryant, you'll find him in the middle. Looks like he's a 8th round pick. It's going to put up top 5 numbers, top 10 numbers for wide receivers. I think that's the real impact part of this deal.
And the trade was tough in some ways because I obviously love Dez. We made a trade for him before the beginning of last season, and he's obviously going to put up big numbers. But it's tough with our keeper system keeping three receivers. I mean, you did that the first year. It's tough having all in one position. You kind of think, I don't have to worry about the position in the draft. But when you realize how the depth at running back is shot, and also at quarterback with the keepers, it kind of changes your draft strategy a little bit. And I went out and wanted to get a great guy, and I think Foster's going to continue to be the guy that he's been. And the way I kind of thought about it was, I can only keep one of the guys, so I'd rather have Foster over one of those two, especially when I have 2 other great keeper wide receivers. So
who's this other one? Oh, AJ Green, absolutely a great keeper wide receiver. Same round too. So that's also a dilemma for you. The way our league is structured, if you have 2 players that can be kept in the same round, one's going to be moved up. So that would have put you in a spot to lose 7th and 8th. I guess I can understand it, but I do think that was a big deal in the off season,
and I think also
affects the whole league.
And while we're talking about RG three-way, the other trade he made where I think he gave up a little too much. The second round pick you can argue is understandable, but to throw in another pick for RG3,
it's like a 2nd and a 6th round pick.
So he only has 2 picks in the first 6 rounds, which it's going to be. I don't know how that's going to end up working out for him, and that's obviously something that's going to shape kind of the way he drafts, because I think the beginning of the first round is going to have a kind of a domino effect on how the rest of the draft plays out. And he's a guy that's kind of a wild card on draft day because he's only got 2 picks in the first 6 rounds.
That's an interesting point. Very interesting. So we have another trade. This one kind of went under the radar, I feel like, where D. Butters trades DeMarco Murray in a 9th round pick to Ansurge for a 6th. Seems to be a kind of a strange deal. I'm not sure quite why you only got a 6th out of it. Why don't you explain that?
I mean, it was hard enough selling him on the 6th. I mean, I think you've been in trade talks with him before. He's kind of a tough guy to deal with. So I mean, I got what I could, and that was kind of the highest it was going. I wasn't gonna keep him, so I at least got some for him. Same with the Wilson trade. I knew that Wilson was more valuable than what I got for him, but it was all I could get. So
I like what you said there about kind of what you can get, because I think that kind of I can segue that into a trade I want to talk about involving me later on. But someone you think they might be really good, but the market is what the market says it's willing to give, not what you necessarily think it should be.
Yeah.
So I guess that's you make a good argument for yourself here. What do you think about this next deal? You want to talk about this next one right here? Bring it up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So obviously, a big talking point in the offseason was what happened with Aaron Hernandez, and obviously a very big tragedy what happened with him and kind of everything that's still going on with him. But that affected Kamoli in a big way because Kamoli was lined up to keep Hernandez, and after losing him, kind of in panic mode, didn't really have any other options. Makes a trade where he gives up 3 picks to get Danny Amendola, which, what are your feelings on Amendola? Everyone's talking about him as possibly the next Wes Welker, but whether that's true or not, it's given up a lot to go get him.
That's true, and I think we're looking at a player now. If I would need to get his numbers in front of me, I don't want to waste the time, but I'm thinking this is a guy on average is at about an 11 to 12 game a year player. I don't think he's finished a season on the field in the last 3 weeks of the year. He's a very injury-prone player. And it's strange injuries. He gets elbow injuries, collarbone injuries, just like the types of injuries that I think injury-prone players get often. They just can't stay on the field. And the thing about Wes Welker is he's going to replace that. Now, this is a guy, what do you have, over 120 receptions?
I think he's had the most catches in the NFL since he's been with
So now we're looking at 140 targets. Has Amendola ever seen anything like that, you think? And you think he can handle that kind of workload and then stay healthy? We talk about workloads for running backs, but think about a workload for a wide receiver. Yeah. That could be, especially for an injury, for someone that has trouble staying on the field, but he's not going to be successful because of his big play ability. He'll be successful because the same way Wes was, catch the ball 8, 9, 10 yards at a time, run a little bit after the catch, but take a hit.
Yeah.
Wes Welker was pretty good at getting up from hits. That's interesting. I think that's I think it's a bad deal. Obviously, it's hindsight's 2020, so we'll see what we're saying in week 17 when we're looking at when someone's hoisting this trophy again. But I think it's way too much. Way too much.
Plus, he's got Gronkowski. There's obviously injury concerns with Gronkowski, but 2 weapons on the same offense.
Yeah, so
not the
risky.
best way to kind of spread your options in fantasy. So. We'll see how that works out for him. He's kind of a guy that likes to take risks and makes big moves, and we'll see if this one works out for him.
Vernon in the 4th.
But obviously, these trades, we're talking about keepers, but obviously there's also picks involved that have changed draft strategies for some teams. And, we've been talking about me with some of the trades I've been making, so let's talk about your big one this offseason, 3-way trade with Keith and Jason, where you end up acquiring a second first-round pick, which we've never seen in our league's history. You got 2 first-round picks. You got 3 quality keepers. Talk about especially with our 2 QB system, which we haven't even touched on. Which really affects how our league drafts and how our league season plays out. You got 2 already. You got 3 picks in the first 11. What does that do for your draft strategy?
Well, I can't give away my entire draft strategy, obviously, but not just a second first-round pick, but the number 2 overall pick. And when you can have a pick like that, knowing that you're planning on keeping 2 quarterbacks, such as I was, because our league, we're kind of all over the place right now, but our league sets you to start 2 quarterbacks. Quarterbacks get 6 points per touchdown. Obviously, they're the most valuable player. Running quarterbacks are always the most valuable quarterbacks. They score the most points. They're not always the most trustworthy. They're injury-prone, just like Danny Amendola, RG3, like we talked about, already coming back from a major injury. We'll see what happens. But when you have a league like that where quarterbacks are so valuable, they get drafted very quickly. So I knew I was not need to draft one in the first round. And with the league, our structure being my choice of pick, I took the last pick of the first round with our snake style, giving me 10 and 11 overall. So being able to spend 3 of the first 11 picks on non-quarterbacks when we expect 4 to 5 quarterbacks to go in those first other 8 picks puts me at a huge advantage to acquire some very, very, very talented players. I mean, obviously Calvin Johnson, Adrian Peterson, we know they're available. Just knowing you
Megatron.
Knowing you could have one of those players plus Russell Wilson, Colin Kaepernick, Demaryius Thomas is very comforting. And then seeing what's available, I'm interested to see what's available at 10, because obviously it's unpredictable. We thought Kamoli was going to draft Tom Brady 2 months ago because he had Gronkowski and Hernandez. Now Gronkowski's hurt, Hernandez is gone. We don't know who Kamoli's going to draft. So who's going to be available at 10 and 11? I could say what I think today. It'll probably be different 3 weeks from now when we draft. So that's a lot, but that's kind of what I was thinking.
To touch on Brady, concerns about their offense may be a little premature. He looked pretty good last night, so it'll be interesting to see how they look this season.
Last night was a preseason game.
Got to take what you can get.
Well, Mark Sanchez has looked in mid-season form last night, right? Pick 6 to open the game.
Garbage. But it speaks to the value of having a quarterback keeper. There are a couple of teams that have one, and you're one of two that have two, and it really gives those teams a big advantage in the draft because I'm a team without a quarterback, and I know that I got to get one. Yeah. And if you don't get one, you're looking at a group of guys that. It's tough to, I had a season 2 years ago where I think I limped to 6 and 7 because I had quarterbacks that I couldn't trust.
Yeah.
And,
let's look at past champions. So you're the defending champion.
So, I had Breeze.
Drew Brees.
The year before that was Jason. He had Ryan Fitzpatrick and Schaub who got hurt. Joe, the year before that, he had Newton and Breeze. So
that's the winning combination. You got to, of course. So I'm taking a risk. Obviously, the quarterbacks I'm keeping are young. They're runners. They're not necessarily proven. I mean, Kaepernick has 10 starts under his belt. 11 starts. Russell Wilson.
He did look good in the Super Bowl, though.
Yes, David is a 49ers fan, in case no one knew.
And I wasn't down with the draft pick of Kaepernick, and everything that people talked about him is just being a scrambling quarterback, but he looked really good in the Super Bowl, and I think he's going to be.
He looked really good the whole run.
And Wilson too. So, where Joe also has 2 quarterbacks. He's got Flacco and Newton. Newton possibly the most valuable keeper in the league. At least I believe so. I think that he has the highest ceiling of any player in football, and for Joe to get him where he gets him every year, and to know that he's going to have Cam Newton for the next 9, however many years it is.
Looks like
and then obviously Sample's got Eli, Ansorch has Matthew Stafford. So just a big advantage for those guys that they know that they're not in a rush to get a quarterback where the rest of the league is.
Well, yeah, it looks like a lot of the league is starting to think this way. We have already that. Well, nothing's confirmed, but we're believing Andrew Luck is going to be kept. That's
Andrew Luck is
Colin Kaepernick, Russell Wilson, RG3. Who am I missing here?
Stafford.
Eli Manning, Matthew Stafford. We got like 7-8 quarterbacks that are being kept already.
And then that those top 5 are going in the first round, which is. Those are your top 12 quarterbacks.
So it looks like.
And if you're not getting a top 12 quarterback, you're at a supreme disadvantage to everybody, especially when 2 people are keeping guys that are outside the top 6 rounds.
Look, what I think? What I think a lot of guys might be thinking is keep one quarterback that I can get, top 8 to 15 production at the position out of, and nab one of those top 5 guys in the first round. Yeah. That might be the combo that you got to
have it. And you got to hope that you can find a sleeper to be your number 2.
And you never know.
And just be consistent.
Because
obviously the quarterback's the easiest position to be consistent out of because they're they're the guys touching the ball every play.
So, to keep going, I want to take a look at Sample's team. Kind of intrigued by what we think are going to be his keepers. Well, let me take a look at what his other options are. But Vincent Jackson, he's one of these guys that, you look at his numbers at the end of the year, and it's like, he's like top 10, top 15. You're like, yeah, that's great, solid production. But you take a look at his game log, and it feels like 65-70% of his production comes in a 4 or 5 week span. And you have other games where it's just 1 reception for 18 yards, 2 catches. It's just, you're keeping him at a 4th round pick, and it's not incredibly early, but I just don't think it's even a player worth keeping. I'd rather take a shot with like a Brian Hartline. I think he's going to be one of those guys that's not looked at. Mike Wallace is going to get a lot of attention. This quarterback, he's in the second year. I think Hartline was very good last year. Sidney Rice, 15th round pick. I mean, it's intriguing that Vincent Jackson. I don't know. We'll see what he does. We'll see what he decides to do. He's not one with a track record of really making decisions that the league is fond of. We'll say it that way, because he has proven us wrong. He did make the playoffs last year, but he was a perennial player in the basement. So we'll see. But I'm intrigued by that. And Alfred Morris, I have question marks about him. I really do. I mean, he was fantastic last year, but I think sometimes people are 7th round picks for a reason. Sometimes they're not. But that's how I feel about him.
I actually think that Scott is in a position to possibly have a year where he finally wins a playoff game. You mentioned Scott making the playoffs last year. He had actually made it the last 2 years. First time he's ever done that.
3 overall pick.
Yeah, first time he's ever done that. And I think if you're looking at his guys, and let's say he goes with Vincent Jackson, Eli Manning, and Alfred Morris,
hold on, we'll agree that of the players he has available, those were his most productive players.
Yes, and
right?
if I were him, the 2 I'd be keeping. And I think that people are talking about Alfred Morris as being a first-round pick in redraft leagues, and I actually disagree with you about Morris. I think he's going to be just as good as he was last year. He has a quarterback. We were talking about how important they are, and then he has someone who can be an elite receiver. You're right; he's inconsistent, but he can be a very good player. So he has the flexibility of having a player at every position to go out and have a good draft. And you're right. We've questioned the way he's drafted in the past, and if he can go out and have a good draft, I think he could be poised for a big year.
I will say one thing. Eli Manning, if I'm evaluating quarterback overall, and I want to start a team, I think he's top 1, 2, 3 guys I would want, with like Rodgers, Breeze. I put him ahead of his brother just based on age. Fantasy wise, I don't think Eli is quite as elite. He has Alex Smith as an option in the 11th round. I don't think they finished too far apart from each other in production at the end of the year. That's my one prediction I'll make. Right, so as good as I think Eli is.
We'll see what happens with him. Pat, RG3 ways obviously have been a big talking point so far. Some of the trades he's made and the limitations that's brought him on draft day. Only 2 picks in the first 6 rounds. He's traded 2 picks and he's got 2 keepers. How is Pat gonna approach this draft where he's at such a disadvantage like that?
Well, the one thing I'll give Pat, you're right. You're at a huge disadvantage. I mean, no 2nd round pick. Keith, no 1st round pick. That's just as big, but we'll get to him. But no 2nd round pick that's big. I think he does make up for it because RG3 is 1st round talent. We know that. And I think Des Bryant is like low level, like an end of a 1st round, early 2nd round talent. So, and then you look at Doug Martin. Like he's not like rookies. I'm always skeptical. Obviously, you're a believer of Alfred Morris. I'm more of a believer in Doug Martin than I am Alfred Morris. I'll say that. The round, it's fair. I would say fair. What is that? 5th round.
Yeah.
So he's
another guy going.
I think he has great keepers. They're young. That's good. They stay on the field, for sure. I mean, RG3, basically his knee had to just give out and collapse and buckle for him to come off the field. And the other guys, they don't really have many injury issues. Des Bryant played all 16 games last year, even with that busted finger. Huge numbers. So I really like his keepers. So I think he can afford. He's got to hit on those 2 picks, though. I mean, if he doesn't hit on those picks, he's looking at a 3-10 year.
And he's one of the domino picks where he could pick a quarterback, or he could not because he has one. Mm-hmm. But he's the kind of guy who thinks you need 2 really good ones. He also could want a 2nd one as an injury insurance for RG3. So he's going to be one of those. He's going to be one of those domino picks in the 1st round for sure. And someone who's definitely worried about that because he doesn't have a pick until the 2nd round is Keith. Traded 1st round pick to you in that big deal for Harvin and Luck. Harvin now going to miss most of the season. That's a big hit for him. he'll adjust, but it's going to be hard to adjust on draft day without a first-round pick.
Yeah, he'll adjust. He's a proven player. He's one that every year we know we're going to probably have to worry about in the playoffs. And the thing is, you say he doesn't have a pick till the second round. It's not just a second round pick. That's number 19 overall that we're talking about. That could be a rookie. Like the way our league is. Wasn't Trent Richardson drafted in the second round?
Yeah.
So, who knows what he's going to get with that pick. So, he's in a tough spot. He's really going to have to. He's going to have to depend on his pedigree and his track record. Really, that's what I think. Because
you know how active.
Even his keepers. David Wilson. We saw what happened to him last year. He fumbled in week 1, and I don't think he saw serious playing time till very late in the season.
Just returning kicks.
Very late in the season. And it's as a result of his kick returning skills that really got him on the field, and Bradshaw being hurt helped. It's a question mark. But, Andrew Luck is going to be good. He's going to be great. But he's going to need a lot more than Andrew Luck. And that second, third round pick that he's got right there is going to be very important for him, I think. Unless, you never know what happens, obviously. But it's going to be very tough. I think Keith has the toughest climb. It's an uphill battle for him going into draft day.
The one thing that could help him is he obviously is going to keep Luck. We can speculate about who his third keeper is going to be. It could be Palmer, but so that's going to give him a little bit of an advantage. Might save him a little bit on draft day. Because obviously, we've touched on the quarterbacks, and obviously having the keepers is important. Someone who is coming into draft day with possibly some questionable keepers for injuries and other concerns is Kamoli, likely to go with McFadden, Gronkowski, and Amendola, who we traded for. We touched on his trade. What do we think about Kamoli's keepers and how he's going to approach the draft with the number 1 overall pick?
Well, you would think someone with the number 1 overall pick would be in a comfortable position, but I don't think anything about his team or his entire offseason has been comfortable at all. Like we said before, I believe that the whole league assumed when he acquired Hernandez and Gronkowski and took the number 1 overall pick, he was going to go with Tom Brady. That definitely doesn't look like it's going to be the case anymore. Obviously, Hernandez was a 16th round pick. That was probably one of the top keepers in the league. With that kind of value at that late in the draft, it's close to what I'm getting with a Demaryius Thomas in a late round like that. That's serious production. And then he had Michael Vick fighting for a job. You never know. He could come around on draft day or when we have our deadline to submit keepers. Coming week, he could call you up and say, "I'm keeping Michael Vick." I don't think that's really a bad idea, personally. I'm looking at some of his other options. The only problem is that our rule of 2 guys in the same round, Amendola and Vick, they're both 6th rounders. It's funny that Amendola was drafted in the 6th round last year. Surprised.
He was good when he's good when he's healthy. It's just the question of whether he gets healthy or not.
Guess you're right. McFadden, I think, is great if he stays on the field.
But it's all these ifs with his guys, so
a lot of ifs.
That's going to be
him and
something
Kamoli,
he has to keep in mind.
for different reasons. Kamoli and Keith, it's going to be, I think, it's going to be tough for them this year.
So we've touched on all the teams with quarterback keepers. Jason's a guy who could have one. He's considering keeping Andy Dalton as obviously a QB2.
Yep.
But he's got some quality keepers as well. He's going to keep Spiller. He's going to keep Marshall. And that third one's kind of up in the air. He's also got some good backs he's choosing between with Forte and Ridley. So we can speculate on who he's going to keep. But I think, Jason's a guy who was drafted really well the last 2 years, finally made the playoffs. We've talked about how he's been the doormat of the league. He finally made the playoffs, won a title, made the playoffs again last year. So and I think that's really started with how he's drafted. He's really improved.
Yeah, he's definitely earned a little bit more respect throughout the league, I think. That's important, I think, for some guys personally.
And this should be a talent draft too. He's got the 2 second-round picks.
I think
acquiring that in the RG3 deal, that obviously helps him out a little bit. Not as much as you, but still an important thing to note.
I mean, let's just think. He has 3 of the first 16. Is that what that is? 3 of the first 16 picks. So that's not a bad start. And he's going to have 2 pretty close to each other. He's picking 9th, so he's got 9 and 12. I mean 9 and 12, and then 16. So he's got some talented keepers. I mean, C.J. Spiller, we know he's keeping. He traded for him. You know, Brandon Marshall, Matt Forte, both 4th rounders. I think I don't really think you can go wrong with either. It's just it's funny that interesting they happen to play for the same team. I think they're Cutler's top 2 targets for sure.
You could even keep Bush too. He hasn't mentioned Bush to me, but he could keep Bush too.
I mean,
a lot of people like Bush in Detroit this year.
We'll see. You know, obviously he wouldn't be successful running the ball because we know Detroit doesn't run the ball. Obviously Calvin's going to get his touches. Reggie Bush could be. You're right. Antonio Brown, he was a reliable guy for Ben Roethlisberger last year who seemed to slow off towards the end of the year. I think he might have had an injury. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to look that up, but he's got some options, and with the three of the first 16, I think he's set up well.
And I think even if he keeps Dalton, he's a guy looking to get a quarterback, which is why I questioned him taking the 9 pick. He's got to hope somebody falls to him. Yeah. Otherwise, he's looking at Romo or Roethlisberger in the 2nd round, who seem like the 2nd round quarterbacks that are going to go off the board. So, you know, it's going to be really interesting, kind of the domino picks in the 1st round, which I think are, you know, Sample, Pat, Answers, what those guys do. They have quarterbacks. If they take another one or go get one of those elite backs, I think those are going to be big picks in the 1st round.
I just want to stop you for 1 second. I think this year, more than ever, I really think the first round is really... You're not going to win your draft in the 1st round, but I think you could definitely... I mean, your season, you're not going to win your league. I think you could definitely lose your league with your 1st round pick this year, for sure. I think they are that important.
And, you know, we spent a lot of time talking about the quarterback and what that does to team strategy. I think another team that has a big advantage is Kevin. He's obviously got Jimmy Graham, who's by far the number 1 tight end. You know, everything you read says if you're not the first person to get a tight end, you should be the last, because after Graham and Gronkowski, who's might start the season on the PUP list, but after those guys, they're all the same. So I think Graham, and you could probably throw Gonzalez and Witten up there a little bit too, but
definitely not in the same class.
But yeah, so Graham, obviously, he's the only team keeping a tight end. He's obviously the best in the game, best in fantasy. That's a huge advantage, not to mention his teammate Sproles, who's going to kind of do a little bit of everything for New Orleans.
Well, the thing about Graham, you say he's the number 1 tight end, which obviously he is. I would say he's probably a top 5 pass catcher in this league. You know, take away running backs, he's probably one of the top 5 guys that's out there.
Yeah, after those 4 top receivers, like, Green, Marshall, Calvin, and Bryant.
I might even think Graham is better than Marshall. But I mean, actually, you know what? The workload of Marshall gets the volume,
targets,
but still, definitely top 10.
Yeah.
Definitely a top 10 overall pass catcher. Number 1 tight end, clearly. I mean, he's a guy that can win you a week. I mean, you know, those are the guys you want. Those are the guys you want to keep.
He's going to be starting weeks with just an advantage, because you know Graham's going to do so-and-so better than whichever run-of-the-mill tight end that he's facing.
Oh, he's going to win the matchup at that position every week,
absolutely.
For sure.
That's such a big advantage.
Darren Sproles is another one of those guys where, and you know what, when you get him so late, you could even slot him in there as a flex and be like, yeah, I can draft 2 running backs still. Maybe, you know, I think he has the option to keep one if I could bring his team up real quick. I mean, he's got Steven Jackson. He's got Kevin Smith. Is he the running back from Detroit?
Yeah,
but obviously he's the backup.
Yeah.
Mike Wallace, Pierre Garçon, another guy who has trouble staying on the field. And this is one of those guys who is a great receiver with a great quarterback, a good receiver with a good quarterback. Well, I won't put RG3 in the great class yet. It's only 1 year. But we'll see what kind of production he can get out of him. We'll see what RG3, if he becomes more of a passer this year, a little less running. That could up Garçon's value, you know. We'll see what he thinks. But I think he's got some options. He picks early in the draft, so he's going to get a good pick. But he's in that kind of that area where it's going to be curious to see what falls to him. But he's either definitely going to get one of those top 3 quarterbacks because it's unlikely that I will draft one with the number 2 pick. So he's set up. I think he's set up well. He's in good position. So let's go to his brother. That happens to be you.
Yeah.
Got siblings in the league. Very cute. Not only are you his brother, you are a defending champion. We'll give you your due.
Yeah, that's how we
you got your belt. We got this trophy. This fine piece of
turn the trophy so I can see the things.
Dust collector.
So I can see the names.
It's paperweight. The league says championship trophy. That's about it. We got 8 winners on here. Added David's this year for the first time. He's real happy about it. That's great. So let's look at his squad. Obviously made the big deal for Arian Foster. I think I voiced my opinion. But I mean, even if he's not great, he's going to be good. That's for sure. He's going to be good. You know, barring an injury. That's obviously every opinion we make is that we're assuming everyone's going to be healthy. AJ Green, everyone knows he's another top 5 talent at the position. Any given week he can go off and just win a week for the guy. Randall Cobb is, we'll see what we get out of him this year. He burst onto the scene last year. Was, when you can get, for the most part, teams in our league, they have 2 to 3 good wide receivers. Teams are, as long as they have their quarterbacks, flex players make a big difference. And when he had Randall Cobb in his flex last year, and he was contributing like a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. And he's getting in, I believe, what's that, 16th round? 14th round? 14th round, sorry. It's a phenomenal player late in the draft. He's got a decent pick. He's picking 7th. We'll see what. As interesting as I said, what's going to be there for Kevin at 4. It's going to be even more interesting to see what's there at 7. Could one of those top 5 quarterbacks could still be there. Obviously, one of them might not be, and that's where David's lacking. He doesn't have a quarterback. If he doesn't get one of those top 5, it's not going to be good. His it's not. He's going to be in a tough spot. So he needs a quarterback at that position, and I think how are you feeling about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's no secret I'm one of those teams that's trying to get a quarterback early. Whether it was Martin before the trade or Foster now, having the running back, I think is huge because I think running back is a position that people got to go get, and to have one is big, and I could probably get one in that first round. There's a couple of guys that could be available, Charles, Rice. And I'm kind of hoping one of those top 5 quarterbacks falls to me. Otherwise, like I said before, you're looking at Romo, Roethlisberger in the second round. So obviously, want to go get one of those guys. But I'm feeling confident, ready to defend my title. First time I could be in that position.
Yeah.
It's like when I won, I said it was like a weight off my shoulders. Finally getting that W. We'll see if you can do it this year. You're in a prime position to do so.
Would you say I'm the favorite?
Yes, I would. I think that, when I put this board together, seeing where your keepers are, the picks you have, if you get those first 3 picks good, that's going to be a tough 6 to contend with. But obviously, it's fantasy.
It's fantasy.
A ton of it's luck. There's injuries, things can happen.
I think Pat, even though he's limited with picks, I think he has good keepers.
And we know, it starts with the keepers, and then it comes down to draft day. And you kind of touched on it earlier. You can't win your league on draft day, but you can certainly lose it.
Yep.
So we're going to be paying attention to what goes down draft day. We're looking forward to it. We thank you for joining us tonight.
And you better keep watching
to talk about draft day. We're gonna try to make this, if not a weekly thing, we're gonna whip out the podcast periodically throughout the season. We hope you'll come back and join us for some more as we talk some more fantasy football, talk the league, and we'll see where we are down the road after draft day and beyond this season.
And if you want to make any input, you want to email the podcast, dkiarsis@gmail.com. That's dkiarsis@gmail.com.